I'm Michelle Adams from ProWritingAid, and today we are back again with JoEllen Nordstrom, our favorite editing expert. She joins us every month for the Self-Editing School series. Last week we learned about when to use editing software versus when to go for a professional editor, and it was great. So what do you have for us this week?
This week, we are talking about the difference between content editing and copy editing, or rather developmental and content editing. Sorry, developmental and copy editing. Wow. Woohoo, we're here now. So we'll be talking about the difference between those two. A lot of people are confused and they want to know the difference. So we just thought we'd break it down one more time and explain it a little bit there.
That sounds great. I'm going to hand it over to you and sit back and learn with everyone else, and I'll be back at the end so we can answer some questions.
All right, we're off then. Let's see here. Everyone see my screen? Can you see it? Yes, okay, great. So we are going to talk about copy or developmental editing today, and we want to find out, what people know or don't know about that, and how I can answer your questions on the difference between the two. So as we go through this, let's see here. Let's see. No. Oh, 1 second here. Oh. 1 second. Let's see if I can get my controls to work. There we go. All right. So as we're going through this, I do want to mention again that we have the editing journey that was written in conjunction with ProWritingAid and Fictionary and myself. And it also includes a lot of this information. So I encourage you to download that and take a look. If at any time you need to know more information about how copy editing works, how story editing works, how line and content and copy editing work together from professionals, this is a really good way. It's available on ProWritingAid, and we also have it on our website or Fictionary. So wherever you get it, it's also up on Kobo and various other places. So as we talk tonight, again, this is self-editing school, so it's going to start with self-editing. And I think it's really important for everyone to know how they can do a lot of this themselves, because editing and professional editing is probably the largest investment you're going to make in your book or your manuscript or your document or your research or whatever work that you are writing. And when you do that, you really need to use your time effectively and get the most from your editor, which means push them, see what they know and get the best work. Don't waste their time with commas and small things that could be fixed easily with other tools. So again, you can use online writing tools like ProWritingAid, Fictionary if you're doing any fictions, and we're going to go through that. So really comes back to, I've outlined about 10 steps that go into a successful edit, and we're going to go through those today, and then I'm going to elaborate on the developmental edit versus the copy edit so that you know the difference and you can take a look at those. So when we go through this, you really need to determine what your manuscript needs and how you're going to find editors who can provide those needs and where you are in your overall editing journey. And again, that's just where you are in the writing process. Have you done the outline? Are you ready to publish? Where are you? And then also the things that you should ask any editor to make sure that you can trust them with your baby and you can go forward with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about those and how the editor, and based upon where you are and these other factors, determines the price that they're going to give you. So again, by knowing self-editing, you can actually save some money, and that's pretty important. And it also makes you a better writer. So, don't skip that. When you want to start with a professional editor, we'll discuss some of the options there and the editing services. So if you understand what services are available, you can better understand what you need, because you'll put those pieces together. And in the same place, how to prepare for that. So there's a lot of help online, such as ProWritingAid and other writing tools out there. So use those and you can basically come together on that. And then understand why the editing is important. It's something you really can't skip, especially in today's world where millions of people are writing and typing as we speak and creating much more work out there. You need to be able to stand out and you need to feel secure in what you're doing. And lastly, discussing your goals overall, why you're writing and what you want to do with this manuscript are very important. So with that in mind, I need to emphasize that editing is a process. And the sooner you accept that it's not linear, that sometimes you go forward and back and you wrap around, you have to do things again. You should be familiar with that. You're a writer, so that's part of it. But you're going to revise yourself. There's going to be revisions to be made after the developmental editing stage. And you're going to have some revisions after line editing, which is in between developmental and copy. And we'll cover a little bit of that today. And then, of course, copy editing, any of the self-editing you've done, you really do want to have a final, validation that you've done everything right and that it's prepared before you share it out there in public, because it really is something that you need to be aware of and how you're doing that. So the 10 steps to successful editing, we'll go through these and then I will elaborate more fully on the developmental and copy editing that we are interested in today. So what is it that your manuscript needs and how do you determine that? Well, you're going to choose between the developmental editor, who's also known as the content, structural, or substantive editor. Content is used again overall in a broad manner. Structural and substantive are going to be more used with the academic, the research. It's making sure that everything's goes together in a very complete and cohesive manner, and it makes sense, and that you're substantiating all your claims. And the developmental editor with the fiction writing is something that you're looking at. Did you fully fill out each of those scenes, the characters, the backstory, and making sure that story arc and everything follows together right? So you need to figure out, do you need a developmental editor, meaning you're on a very high level, you're looking at the big picture and you're trying to figure out what it is that your story is cohesive and it makes sense to somebody who's new, who hasn't been part of the story for a year or so. And then you move on to a line editor. Line editor is one who's going line by line to make sure that when you go from one paragraph or one sentence to the next, that it's cohesive and it makes sense, but they're not looking at the overall locations and times and dates. They're making sure that the writing skills are cohesive. And then your copy editor is that final round right before you go into formatting, which is, more of your grammar, spelling, punctuation, and your style. So they're overseeing a lot of that. And you should be familiar with that because I know everybody here is using ProWritingAid. So that is an online tool for copy editing, and it's really great to use the AI for that. We use that as professional editors, so I always advise anybody to add that to their arsenal also. So you want to compare the editing services and know when each level is necessary. Again, there is a little bit of difference between fiction and nonfiction and academic and research, but in overall, as long as you're dealing with an editor who specializes in academia or in nonfiction or in fiction, and if in fiction, they're in your genre, and they are also trained in that specific level of editing, then you've got the foundation for making an accurate request to see if they're the right person for you, because it is a matchmaking game. So developmental editing is the top level that you're going to look at, followed by line, followed by the copy editing. And of course, I have included on a couple of screens this time, people liked it last time, the different types of writing, and these have links in there so you can go in and read based upon your type of writing. So if you're writing stories and you're doing fiction, and that's something that's going to happen this next year with the fantasy writers, then you want to look at story editing. You need to make sure your story arc is developing. If you're going to write nonfiction, which would be your inspirational, motivational, or educational types of stories or information where you're teaching people or using it even as marketing, a marketing tool in your speeches and things like that, then you want to deal with somebody who's familiar with marketing, and they're totally different from a fiction editors. So you want to make sure that they are qualified to do that. And then of course we get into the academic and research. These are going to be PhD editors who are familiar with the thesis and dissertation process. And the even higher level is when you get into subject matter experts who are doing your substantive research editing. And that's for when you're publishing in journals or conferences or seminars or different courses going on around the world. So developmental editing. It is for both the panters and the planners. And those of you who don't know those terms, there are people who fly by the seat of their pants, meaning they just are hit by inspiration and they write. And that's fantastic and fine. But there is also the planners who do a complete outline. They do all the research, they do the background, they develop alternate world, they develop the characters. They could tell you about their family and the history and the background. So both of those use developmental editing because you're still looking at the overall story and you need somebody who's neutral, professional, and trained to evaluate your story and your story arc there and to make sure it's working. Anybody, regardless of your genre, may want to know, is my writing any good? Is it going to appeal to the writers of which I am submitting it to? And that's very, very, very important. So we're going to go ahead with that. And then, of course, we're going to look at the research, is the substance. Are you supporting all of your claims that you make? And that could even be in business writing. Are you are you giving substance to what you're having there? Are you supporting any of your statements so that it goes well forward? Line editing, again, back to that in between is the editing necessary for when you're submitting to peer review. Most of the time, I would say the easiest way to classify this section is people will suggest that you get professional editing and they'll be referring to line editing. They may say copy editing, or proofreading, and they use those words interchangeably, but that's not actually correct. If before you go to an agent, before you submit to peer review, before you submit to a group in any way, shape, or form, the minimum would be to do the line edit because they're going to make sure that you have a professional presentation and it's all appearing and sounds nice. It is the most commonly requested level of editing for us, and it is more affordable than developmental editing. However, it is not as in-depth. It's not going to take your structures and maybe move one chapter to another, recreate, eliminate portions, and add it in. So it's more just making sure what you've written sounds and reads well. So when you're doing this, again, some more links here. If you want to read about academic English or scientific or nonfiction or fiction, there's some links here you can check out and read a little bit more. But there's different types of editing. And so if you're going to that type of editing, you want to have a line editor. So make sure they just simply match. And I know that's basic, but not to be overlooked. So line editing is in your revision stage. You have completed your outline, you feel confident in it, and you're revising. And revising happens throughout all sections of editing, but again, you should be aware of this. And it's part of self-editing. It's also part of the professional editing. And I want to mention here that you can and should use copy editing tools during all stages, but very important that you're using it through line and copy editing stages because, correcting commas and grammar, spelling, punctuation, those kind of small things, and they're not small, don't misunderstand me, but correcting those smaller details are not as important when you're in a developmental edit. When you're on that high level structural substance content edit, those are the three words we're using for developmental edit, then you can use a copy editing tool because it will help you improve your writing. It will teach you how to become a better writer. It will show you how to correct your works. But at the same point, it's not going to be as important for a professional editor to be doing that level of editing because we're dealing with a bigger structure and we need to stay focused on the big story. So professional copy editing is always the last thing that you do before you go into formatting. And you should only, I think I've written this on all three of those slides there, that you need to have a trained editor. They should be vetted. They should have proven success in that level of editing in your genre with a success story behind them and able to prove and show to you that they can provide the level of editing that you need. And again, Copy editing is there. Technical editing is more of an academic English editing, is very important when you're doing with theses, dissertations, different academic works, and then the technical copy editing of the scientific researchers. That's going to deal with a lot of your citations, your different style guides, and then of course the protocol within your subject matter, which is very unique, and within the journals to which you are submitting. So copy editing is your final edit before formatting. And again, use the tool during this time. Proofreading, I'm just going to mention it because people use the word all the time, but I'm not convinced that you are using it correctly. So this is the final review of the formatted document. It means it, and things have changed over the years. So understand that this is because we have self-publishing and people put their documents into these platforms that, you know, are magical and do all these great things. They also kind of sometimes mess up the formatting, and that can affect it. And the good thing is to have somebody, a proofreader who's totally separate, who goes through and looks at the formatting, makes sure that it's all laying out correctly, that it works right. And then also, you never know, there could, you know, we are humans here, we're all dealing with that we want to make sure that you have all those grammar, spelling, punctuation, last minute, small details, because I know I can say for myself, and I'm pretty sure every single person listening here has read a book, a bestseller, and still found a mistake in it. And that's just the world. And it's kind of nice, to be honest, as we move more and more into artificial intelligence, that, you know, a human was there and it didn't go well. All right. So step 2, you want to get the best price, and you're going to find the qualified editors for that. So you're only going to hire them. I'm going to mention again, make sure you're using tools, not just ProWritingAid. There are fiction writing tools such as Storyteller. There are all kinds of, Essay Jack is a great worker out there for academic. And, you know, there is Writers Helping Writers, which is an organization fantastic for dealing with fiction and fantasy and things like that. So make sure those, and then of course, as you use these, which is wonderful at ProWritingAid, is they interlock so well. So they're going to be sitting there on your little shoulder going, hello, did you mean to write that? Hello, I'm going to fix this. And so you will learn how to self-edit. So if you use this day in and day out, and you always have it turned on, you will become a better writer. And that's the beauty of it. So, and again, when you're revising again and again, you're going to look at that. I love to throw this one in. This is one of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell. Met him at the New York Book Expo and asked him, you know, any advice out there for all of our writers. And he just simply said, rewrite your book. It's never done. And this is a man who has many, many international best-selling books. And I think we can listen to what he has to say. So you want to compare your editors and make sure that they are qualified, vetted, proven successful, competent people in those types of editing, and also that they are a good match for you, because editing is like dating. You really need to connect and to have the same sense of humor, to have the same perspective, to share the same desires, because they are working with your voice, and you want to make sure that your voice sings through the document, and instead of it being a little muffled by somebody else's opinion or perspective that doesn't match yours. So again, be careful there. Developmental editors are looking at your entire purpose of your document. They're looking at the overall big picture of what you're trying to say and how you are creating. For example, I'll just stay with fiction for a moment, how you're creating that story arc, where you are creating conflict, how you're creating resolution, how each scene plays into the next scene. There's 38 story elements that we're looking at, and we're making sure that all of those work hand in hand in the big picture, so that once we know that that story really, really is the best, and it fits the, I don't want to say template, but the pattern of proven, successful national and international bestsellers, then we will go ahead and line edit or copy edit and make sure that the grammar, spelling, punctuation is the best on that story, or on, if you're outside of fiction, on that research, on that business document, whatever you're doing. So it is the most in-depth, it is the most detailed, it is the most intricate type of editing, and it is also your biggest and best investment in your book. Line editors are looking at the style, the speech, the variances there, their tone, the usage, the words, if you've got clutch words, if you've got sticky things going on there, any phrasing, they're making sure that all of that is worked. So again, you can use 3 separate editors if necessary. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. Some budgets are not going to allow it, but I am going to say that you definitely, if you can invest in the content editing, it is the best thing you can do. And then of course, use all the tools and go down with your copy editing and have somebody do the final. And there are resources out there. So line edit is definitely well worth doing, and definitely part of the process if you are dedicated and a stickler for all the small details. And you will see how amazing it is when you switch editors and the type of editing and what you find in the next round. It's amazing what we will find in there. So again, go through that, allow yourself to really dig in. You've already put all of your love and into this journey. So continue with that. You've got the final technical review, which are the copy editors. They're doing the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation, the styles. And again, these can be technical through tools online, such as ProWritingAid. But when you're done at the end of the day, you still know how it pops up and it says, is this what you wanted to use? It doesn't assume, it doesn't automatically say you're wrong, because humans have different ways of wanting to express themselves, and you are allowed to break the rules if you know how to do it correctly. And so it's very important to have the human eyes, the human brain working through that. And it's funny working with all of these online tools and working with all these online platforms and softwares. Now I am, in my company, we're being referred to again and again as the human editors, which I find hilarious when we've always just been professional editors, but yes, we are humans that will compare it to the AI that you're using. And it's a very good idea to do that. So once you know where you are in the editing journey, you can figure out which level. So just to decide, if you can't determine what you need, you can say where you are. And that's another way to determine what type of editing you want. So if you're on that high level structural outline and trying to still fill in the blanks and figure out how to smoothly transition, or unsure about the overall plot or presentation in any way, shape, or form, then you're looking at the developmental phase. If you're been through that and you feel very solid and you're just trying to clean up a few things here and there, then you're in the line editing, which is your multiple revisions phase. And then if you're in your final phase and you just need to make sure that it is good to go, that is your copy editing phase, which is your final phase. And then of course, after it's been formatted, then you go into the proofing with the proofreaders. So, and all of this determines where you are. If you're going, when you're considering your publishing, are you doing traditional? Are you doing self-publishing? Are you doing a hybrid of the two? And of course, we have been, all 3 of us, I'm referring to ProWritingAid, myself, and then the writer of the book with Fictionary. We have now combined into a new quartet, and we are working hand in hand with Kobo. So I do recommend that when you are ready for the publishing, that you get in there and you check it out. They also have a fantastic podcast and the blog, so you can learn a little bit about that. And I love this diagram because it kind of shows you that linear process, even though I'm talking about levels of developmental and then line and then copy editing, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. If for some reason you go through developmental editing and you think it's going good, and then you get to line editing, you think, okay, I'm almost done with these revisions, and then you just have this brainstorm and you go, oh, wait a minute, there's something that's been missing here, and you go back, you can end up doing a rearrangement where you have to go back and do a little bit of a development. If you have fantastic story and it needs very little, you can do most of your editing in the line and the content while you're in that developmental phase. So it'll really depend upon the status of your document, the quality of the writing, the quality of the composition, the if you're really established how well you've mastered your craft, and then of course where you are, and then there's other things like what do you want, what do you need to know out of this. So it's again, so you're going through the story editing, you're using ProWritingAid throughout, you're contacting a professional editor whenever you really need to go ahead with that. And when you're ready, we do recommend that you go ahead and take a look at Rakuten and Kobo. Writing Life is really fantastic there. So I always like to talk about who you can trust, and I'm not doing a pitch here. I just want to say you cannot trust your mom or your best friend, your teacher, your colleague, or anybody else who just says, "Oh, I'll do it for you for free. It's no problem. I got some free time." If they're not working in this field, then don't let them touch your baby. You would not take your child to somebody who says, "Oh, let me take a look at that cough there. I can probably, sounds familiar." You would take them to a pediatrician. They are your life and blood, and you care about them. And really, that's the attachment we have to our writing nowadays. So you need to only deal with people who are experienced, educated, vetted. And we have taken the additional this last year. I'm a believer and a firm I just really think that everybody should get certified if you can in whatever you're doing. So you need to have an advanced degree. And we've been going on with our editing to do certified story coaching, which is again combining the artificial intelligence, the software with our vetted editors, and the difference it is making, the quality that we can deliver, the amount of information we can provide is immense. So you really need to look for editors who can prove that. So when you're looking for that and you're trying to figure out, can I trust this person? Do I like them? Go ahead and ask to see their portfolio, ask to see a sample of how they would edit and what they recommend with your document so that you can do that. Again, what are you expecting? And again, this is not my editors, this is from every editor. I would really encourage you to ask for the portfolios, show you their history of editing, show you their success, the books that have been published, the authors who've worked with them, the testimonials, the reviews, the publications, what's happened, get some references. And maybe you can't talk to the people they've worked with, maybe there's something going on there, but at least, if they've got testimonials and you can go onto Amazon and see, oh, wow, these people are published, then you've got validation there. And that's pretty important. So let them review your manuscript first, and they're going to tell you what you need. And it's really not an opinion that is to be discussed. It is a professional evaluation, which means that they're giving you a small critique of what needs to be done with this manuscript before you take it publicly. So do not disregard that, because if you don't value their word, then you shouldn't be giving them your money. Point blank. So and those who will give you a pretty good critique, I mean, they're not going to let you order or take anything less than what you need. So that's very, very important. You need to know what level editing fits your wants and requests. Again, you may want to have more of a critique. You may want to have more consultation, more discussions. So again, that'll be very important there. And then of course you want to know what the price is going to be. It should be a set price. Please don't get into any kind of hourly fees. It can get scary and, a bad surprise there. So set a timeline. I think that's really important right now. We've been through this pandemic, or we're in this pandemic, and there's a lot of new freelancers out there, people looking for work who have experience in writing or written a book. That does not make them an editor. Okay. If they haven't worked in a publishing house, if they haven't been trained, if they don't have the qualifications and skills, they should not just say, oh yeah, I can do that, because there's a big difference there. And the problem that you will find as a repercussion of those who are not trained is that timelines get left behind. And maybe you're not in a rush, but you should know when you're going to get the book back. You should be able to plan your life and your vacation, and hopefully there's a vacation, but what's going on in your world, you should be able to do that. So again, make sure there, and then get an outline of what happens if you find some errors, or if you have questions, or you disagree with something. Again, you're going to go through, and we don't give you back a document. No editor should hand you back a document that says it's done, it's completed, it's all good, and there's no markups. You should have to go through every single change, every single suggestion and absolutely confirm or reject everything that they do, because ultimately it is your reputation, it's your first impression that you're putting out there. So those are very important. And again, what determines those prices is what we've just talked about. It's what your manuscript needs, it's where you are in the writing process, and what you want them to provide for you. So when you look at that, you want to compare, really, we haven't talked about your desire, and that's going to be down. Do you want to coach? Do you want to critique? Do you, there are reviews out there. Do you need a critique? Do you want this person to go ahead and provide the revisions and provide some of the rewrites? We have editing that we do that for up to a limit. We can't rewrite the book. We're not ghostwriters, we're not copywriters, but we can definitely adjust some of that, especially when it comes into English as a foreign language and those kind of documents. It's very important that, if you really want them to do that, that they do that. But again, you need to go back in and accept and validate that it still means and says exactly what you want it to before you get it out there. And then always, getting that approval or that final okay, that final proofread before you put it out there for self-editing, or sorry, for self-publishing or whatever you're going to do. So when do you start with that editor? Developmental or copy? If you're on the developmental side, then we're looking at, when you've got that fully outlined manuscript and you're still looking at the high-end structural substantive level there, that's when you're going to definitely want to start with an editor for a developmental edit. For a developmental edit, you're still moving things around. You might, and I know it sounds horrible, but you might have to take away an entire chapter. You might throw it away. So again, go ahead and do that. When you've completed your self-editing, of course, you're ready for either the developmental or line editing. And sometimes you're just done. You're just so done, you need a break, and that's good. But always, always, always have a professional look at this before you share or distribute. The internet is a wonderful thing, but everything that goes out there is permanent and it's hard to take back something. So make sure that you have it edited before you do that. And that counts for business. If you have business documents or you're preparing anything, resumes, anything that's important to you and you don't feel 100% strong, then use those online tools. Use ProWritingAid. It's fantastic for, determining how to correct things and make it look better. And then of course you can always quickly send it over to an editor who can pop through it and make sure it works for you. So now you've got this knowledge, you know where you are in the process, you know the types of editing that are available, you know the different types of editors are there, and you know more or less what you want. So now you need to choose which editing service you have. So it's based on those things: the status, the needs, the goals, and of course, after you've started interviewing or, at least applying to different companies or professional editing service providers, that they're also giving you recommendations. Again, not everybody does that, but free samples, something we do because we find it allows us to make that match quickly. And if for some reason it's not a match, it's not just one way, it's both ways. The editor needs to be willing to work with you also. So all four of those are very important in determining if you want copy editing, developmental editing, and when you're going to start that. So those are very, very important. You need to, I just included this on here, some different assistance that you can get before you hire the professional. Again, I do encourage you, that's why we're doing this self-editing school, is that you really want to learn how to improve your craft, to become a master in your genre, in your field, in your research, in whatever you're doing. And part of that is becoming a very strong writer, and editing skills always improve your writing. It's just they go hand in hand together. And you may not be great at self-editing now, but you will be better, I can guarantee you, by using the tools. So it's really fantastic what you can learn there. So before you hire a professional, if you can do the self-editing and use those tools out there, it will save you time, it will save you money, it will save you frustration, because one of the things that you will learn is that when you are communicating with the same words, the same expectations, the same knowledge, you can better communicate your needs and your desires to the editor. And furthermore, when they are expressing why they're making these changes or why they think you need to do a certain change or move or structural alteration of some sort, that you will understand why. It really helps you. You need to understand those because it is a skill. It is a definite skill out there that you really, by having the basics, you can better understand the editor, and you can also better evaluate if they're really who you want to deal with. So be careful in that. So use the online tools. We have ProWritingAid, Fictionary, just a couple. There's loads more out there. There are writing groups and beta readers, but again, you know, getting some feedback is always good, but don't open yourself up to too much because really everybody has an opinion, but is it a trained, certified, professional, neutral, kind, honest, and fair opinion? I don't think so. So then we also have blogs and podcasts. Publishingpower.com is one that I host, and you're welcome to join us there. And the Kobo Writing Life podcast is really, really good. So that's all out there. Check those out. We have the ProWritingAid, you know, that's for all the editors. It has the grammar checker and the style editor and all of that. Essay Jack, I'm recommending for academics, especially students. It's really good in giving you prompts and helping you get the structure correct. So it's a high level structural substantiation type of self-edit, and it's a really nice tool to get involved with. In the same sense with Storyteller, that's from Fictionary. That's the self-editing software, and we're using the professional editorial software of theirs, and it's amazing artificial intelligence out there. It's really what you need to get involved with. If you're doing it on your own, you're doing the self-editing for yourself here. You're getting the tools for the developmental self-edit through Fictionary. When you're ready, we can easily pop into the back end there and provide the professional editor. And at any point, you know, it's a lot of work. If you get tired, we can do that for you, and that's part of what we do. So again, it's very nice hand-in-hand cooperation there. We also have One Stop for Authors. This is Storytellers. They're creating the worlds and the backgrounds and the backstories for all the characters and development. Amazing tools in there. So please check that out. These will all help you become a better writer. And then, of course, I mentioned the podcast here. This is coming up. We have this Kobo Writing Life, and that's where you can do your self-publishing. And we just created one here with Fictionary, myself, and ProWritingAid. So again, and Kobo, talking about editing tools and how to get started in that. So please do that. It's an excellent blog and podcast. Check out the blog, really good things there. So use the software to prepare, learn, and understand. Just be prepared to do the work. I don't need to go through all of this, but everyone here is probably using ProWritingAid, and again, grammar checkers, the style editors, all those things are wrapped in there. I encourage you to check out the reports, and it's very nice to learn about yourself. What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? Where have you improved? And I use this myself because it plugs into your emails, it plugs into the forums online, it plugs into my Google Docs, it plugs into my Word. So there's all kinds of things there, and it's always helping you to get to that next level. And of course, we have, anytime you're in there, it'll say, do you need a human editor or a professional editor? And we're right there at the click of a button, and push it, and we'll be glad to give you a free sample. So again, check that out. Excuse me. You need to understand why the professional editing is necessary. And again, I did cover this a little bit, but it is your investment. It is a large investment. Professional editing is not really something that can be bought on the cheap. I would say that we're one of the most competitive professional, trained, certified, and vetted companies out there. And yet people are still surprised by the prices that come in there. So you need to be prepared and take it seriously. So self-editing helps you save some money and helps you get the best out of your editor. So do that. It is your baby, it's your reputation, it's, you know, your first impression when you're out there. And if you're going to submit this to an agent or anybody else, you really need to protect these. So, and that, as I put on here, is your responsibility. Ultimately, this is up to you. If you choose to skip editing, then I wish you the best of luck, because it's something that you just need to make sure that you can't fix it after the fact. You can't fix the first impression after the fact. You can't fix the rejection normally. So it's very difficult there. And it's going to help you reach your goals regardless. So I just throw this in. Good job on Michelle Obama with the becoming. And she, I like to talk about becoming a successfully published author is a process also. And it helps you tell your story. It's going to help you convey your information to your people out there, establish your credibility, get your book published, get it selling, and become that author that you've always dreamed of and fulfill that life goal. So again, this is what a professional editor helps you do. And it is really, editors are like coaches. They're somebody who they can't do the work for you, but they can set up all the right tools. They can set up all the right things, and they decide where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, and help you become the best writer, the best manuscript, and help you transform from just a writer into an author and really appeal to the readers. So it's very important that they understand your genre, they understand your needs, and that they can help you achieve that. So they're going to basically go through your voice, your presentation, your stories, your ideas, and they're also going to critique your skills. So be prepared for that. They are professional. They will do it nicely, but they're going to help you see and understand where you can strengthen yourself. And that's very important, because it does help you strengthen your craft there and become a master writer. So that's why we're called First Editing, because you do this before you publish. And again, I do encourage you. I know this is a lot of information coming in all at once, and it's there, but I encourage you to go ahead and download the ebook. It's available on ProWritingAid. We have it on our website. We'll send out this presentation here as a PDF tomorrow, if to all of you who's attend, anybody who misses. And so you can click on here and just download that ebook, and it'll help you. I believe we're going to do a second edition very soon, so we'll expand it a little bit more with the self-publishing part also. But again, thank you, and I hope that Michelle is here so we can take some of the questions that we have. Hey, welcome back.
Awesome job. It was so interesting hearing about all of that. We do have quite a few questions. Yeah. So we'll just get started here. So the first, the first one, does this editing process apply to textbook manuscript?
Yes. Textbook manuscripts, any kind of writing, and textbook manuscript would fall under that research/academic work. And it's not really nonfiction, because in a textbook, you're going to have all your citations, you're going to have your style guides, you're going to have everything that you need to create that. You're going to also have something that's very, very important that we're going to be expanding into, and we're not doing right now, but you really need to consider and go online and find somebody to do this. But you're going to have graphics. And when you're doing textbooks with graphics in today's world, you cannot be basic. They need to be very clear, and they need to be very well. And so the formatting is also part of that. But yes, you're going to start with an overall understanding. And I think even more so with textbooks and those kind of informational academic work, that you want to have somebody who's familiar with the pedagogy and can look at it overall and what makes the best presentation. Because quite often we know we want to present it this way, but when you get some fresh eyes that may, you know what, this actually ties in here. The other important things you're going to be looking at is your index, your table of contents. Electronic index is very important there if it's an online book. And then of course, knowing which publisher you're looking at. If you're not doing this independently, they're going to have their own internal style guide, and you need to be able to fulfill that. So if you can share those kinds of information with your editor from the very, very beginning, don't just give them an APA or whatever it is. It's very good. And then of course, I would recommend, because it's a textbook, that you hire somebody. We refer to it in our company as research editor, who is a subject matter expert, meaning that they actually know the foundation about what you're talking about. They don't have to be, a 3-time PhD in that area. Of course, that would be great, but they do need to have, hard science skills if that's where you are, or whatever background you're using. So please, 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 yeah, do follow that. And I would start with a high level what we would refer to it in research editing is a substantive edit. So they're looking at the overall presentation, supporting the documents, supporting your statements, supporting your facts, validating, reference, citation. Lots of work. Good luck.
Okay, next we have, are there any language variation dependencies involved with editor hiring? For example, should you only hire a UK English editor if your novel is written in UK English?
You need to hire somebody who does editing with UK English. They don't necessarily have to be from England, but they need to be aware. So when you submit that, in the same way that you share your style guide or your manual, whatever you're following along, you need to indicate, I want this in British English. The international English standard is American English. That doesn't mean it's right. It just means that's the default. So if you're doing British, yes, you need to make sure that they are comfortable and they have experience and they are trained to stay inside all of the differences, and they're not going to minimize your writing as much. In the standardized American English, we do very short sentences. And even in ProWritingAid, you can alter it and say, okay, I need this, I need that. And it will tell you, okay, you can have a longer sentence because that's more acceptable in the British English versus an American who's going to say, nope, cut this, we're not going to have all these extra little areas here. We're going to have them all separated as individual statements. So yes, absolutely ask for a British editor. If they're British by heart, that helps, but it's not necessary. They just need to be fully aware of what type of language they're dealing with. And that also varies for Canada and Australia and, in Indian English, there's, some things that can be more, but if it's academic English, that's a very important thing to knowledge. So yeah, good question.
Okay, how do you match a book with one of your editors?
How do we match a book? Well, we're basically, we have the first front end, which is you're going to submit your document in with your instructions and your requests. And how that works is that it will go along the genre. So if you're doing a fiction and you want to do a children's writing, then of course we're going to instantly send that sample to somebody who qualifies in that. If within the first 24 hours, we're also reaching out to you with a phone call, and we have our customer service management or client manager, Kathy and Emil and some others, Cyrene, and they will pick up the phone and call you and talk to you about it. And if at any point they say, oh, you know what, I really think you're better matched with this person, they're kind of like your little matchmaker there. So they'll put it together.
Okay. What is the best point in the editing process for releasing to beta readers? Then what editing do you suggest after they have done their critique?
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely, if you're going to, beta readers come after your developmental edit, ideally, because you're going to get so much feedback from so many different people with different perspectives that you really need to be solid on what you want to present and how you want it organized and structured, and that you feel confident with that. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time doubting, rethinking, going back and forth. Whereas I think when you're more solid than there, after that, those beta readers are going to have a lot of opinions and they're going to give you a lot of feedback. And that's where you can do some content or developmental editing if you're really inspired by it. Or you can, just listen to what they have to say about other things. And then you can go on to the line editing. So line editing is ideal after that. And they may say, gosh, this is the best thing written. And maybe you can skip it, maybe it was so well done. But if they're saying, oh, there's some errors in here or whatever, then of course you're still going back to line editing to make sure it's smooth and transition and that the voice sounds right and that it's all formatted correctly and it stays there. I hope that answers the question.
So if you just want to speak to someone for some simple direction and help, what type of editor do you recommend?
Simple direction and help. I need probably a little bit more to answer that fully, but there's a lot of forums out there, and I would start with ProWritingAid here. There's going to be forums out there. You can write on Quora, you can write on different things and ask that, but without knowing what type of simple information you need, it could be, I don't know. I don't know exactly what you're looking for. If it's the grammar, spelling, punctuation, then you're going to go to a copy editor. If it's the voice and the style guide and different things like that, you're going to get into line editor. And it may seem simple, but sometimes it just opens up Pandora's box. So I think start with friends and family, or sorry, not friends and family. Start with peers who are writing in the same genre and where their forms are, and if there's any open parts. There's not a lot of editors who have time to sit out there and answer things for free, because they got to make a living, and everybody's got to feed their kids today.
We have someone who is interested about if a user has dyslexia, how can you check an edited manuscript that has been line or copy edited?
That's fantastic. I wouldn't know this answer normally. I would not. But I have a friend that I met whose child was dyslexic. And what I discovered, and they probably know about this, it just blew my mind, is that there is now a font for dyslexia, which means it's weighted on the bottom, which makes it much easier for a person with dyslexia to see where it should be, and it's special. And I haven't gone into it. I'm not familiar with dyslexia myself. I'm not an expert on this. I'm not an expert on, I'm the consultant here. But my assumption would be that if you have that, it's going to be able to show you, because that font will go into every part of communication. So you should be able to read your notes. You should be able to see the changes in there. If not, you're going to go back to a consulting, and it's going to be an auditorial reading and consultation. And of course, that's just part of the situation, which I'm sure the person with dyslexia is probably familiar with in their educational and processes anyhow. So I think that's the best. But if you try that font and reach out there, I'm sure that it's there. I myself have never dealt with that individually, but probably if I contacted one of my editors, I could find out.
Okay, someone is asking about story grid editing. Is that something you're familiar with and would recommend?
Yeah, it's great. Story grid is really a foundation out there, and they have trained up some editors, and they have that going on, and it's really intense training from what I understand, but it requires the editors to go in and live there and do different things. What I can say is Fictionary, the company that we're dealing with, that we've done our certification with, that we have the same level of professional training, is based on the same concepts. And what they've done is they've taken all those concepts from the StoryGrid book, and there's loads of videos they have, YouTube and different things on there. So I encourage you, for your own benefit, if editing and self-editing is turning you on and you want to get more, check out StoryGrid. It's really cool stuff. But Fictionary took all of that information and then they put it into artificial intelligence, so that instead of having all of these spreadsheets after spreadsheet after spreadsheet with an editor telling you to do this, and then you have to cross-reference and figure it out and put it in, the computer's doing it for you. And it's just brilliant. You have inline edits, you have inline notes, you have all of the 38 story elements ticked off for you. You have each scene broken down by one. So this is the same concepts, the same, overall theories of what they're doing. But they've automated it into this, this intelligent assistant that helps you as you're writing, and you have the software. So if you're into that, and it's also, I don't want to do a big push here, but I'm a firm believer and I love Fictionary, and I invested in their company. Full disclosure here, but I'm not making money off of this. Anybody goes there from this webinar, so do as you please. But they're so affordable. You can get all of that for what you would spend for an editor. You can start the self-editing process using something on Fictionary called Storyteller. So please check it out. It's well worth it. And I believe most people are do-it-yourselfers, dig in, elbow grease. So check out Storyteller. And then when you're done with that, you're ready for a story coach, which is the professional editing version that we use. And we'd love to help you on the way. But StoryGrid is awesome. Read the book, watch the videos, check out the website. Absolutely, they do it. I just think that it's been simplified with Fictionary.
All right. Someone says they have 3 or 4 pieces finished. Should there be a collaborative discussion about which an editor might want to tackle first, or is that up to the author?
3 or 4, what did you say? They have 3 or 4
Pieces of work.
pieces of work. So I'm guessing those are part of a trilogy or something like that, maybe. And then the question was, sorry.
Should there be a collaborative discussion about which one an editor might want to tackle first, or is that just at the discretion of the author?
No, I think if you are prepared to, if you have 3 or 4 manuscripts that you are ready to edit all of them at some point, you finally are going to go all the way through all of those, then absolutely. And I think ideally you'd want to work with the same editor. So that would be ideal. However, to have an editor review all 3 to 4 documents, or 3 to 4, I don't even see manuscripts, 80,000, 100,000 words, that's quite a task in itself. So you're probably going to have an investment up front to do that, to get that review, that critique. But as long as you're going to stay with them throughout, I'm sure that they can calculate it back in the end. So if you have a preference, good. But if you have your blurbs, you're ready on what they are, and you can have, if you're really ready and you have your blurbs ready, then send that to your editor and, send them a portion of the document or the whole section of the one you think is probably ideal, but send them the blurbs, and then they'll see your writing style, they'll see any of your weaknesses, they'll see the basic outlines, and so that should help you. So yes, I would have a small discussion on them, or be prepared to invest for a larger discussion for their time. But yeah, I hope that answers again.
Okay, we're almost to our hour. I think we have time for maybe one more. This
one
person.
Here. Sorry, Fictionary easy to use for slightly techno challenge. Yes, but going on. Techno, yes. Editing, I don't know. You still need to learn your editing, but go on. Sorry.
It's okay. Somebody else says, I'm on my 4th draft of my book and in the process of looking for an editor who can give me professional feedback on whether my story, character, and dialogue are strong enough. How do I find this kind of editor?
You're going to send that in, and I would recommend that you get a story coach. Those are that's what we have certified our editors to that level. There's also other ones out there, just a few, because it's still fairly new on the market. And you're going to tell them what you see the weaknesses are, what your questions are, what you need, what you think you want, and they're going to evaluate it from that point, and then you start the developmental edit. And when you are done with the developmental edit, you're going to spend another 2 or 3 months doing the revisions, and you're going to do it inside the same professional software that we're using. So basically, and I can only speak from our work, and I'm not doing a pitch here. I'm just saying that when we do this, then basically it's like we're working behind the scenes. You have this window, you've put your document in, and when we're done, we open this window, and now you can come in. We're no longer editing, but we can communicate through that wall on your document, and you'll see the original pre-edit, and you'll see the editor's version. Then you'll do your revisions, you'll see the story arc, how it changes, and then what will happen after that is you'll be able to make all those changes, alter the story arc so it fits, and then print out and go forward from there to your beta readers, whichever your next level is going to be.
Okay, and to the people who have written in asking about slides and the webinar recording, we will be posting the recording to our YouTube channel, ProWritingAid TV, and also to our past webinars page on our website. And everything will be sent to all of the people who are registered, so you will be good to go. The link to the free ebook is in the chat if you would like to access that. Any final closing statements, JoEllen?
It's been great. I hope I answered all your questions, and I'm here if you have other questions. I always think that it's well worth asking for a sample before you get involved with an editor. Not every match is made in heaven, but try that out now. I hope that helps. Check out the ebook, and I'll see you again next month. More questions on the way.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who attended today. I hope that you had just as much of a great time as we did. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.